So I've got something a little bit different for you today. I was reached out to by a guy named Daniel. Now, Daniel is doing a university degree, and I think it's got to do with business. I don't know exactly what degree he's doing, but he's in his first semester, his first term, and he actually was able to reach out to me because he had to do an assessment on entrepreneur that he was inspired by to ask questions. Now, this interview was actually really, really cool. It's the first time I've done anything like this, and he's actually asked some really, really cool questions. And I asked with his permission to post it on my YouTube channel here because I think it's got a lot of good advice and it's got a lot of good content. I'll most likely be posting this to a podcast as well. So, hello if you're listening in the podcast. But we go through a lot of things, just more personal things for myself, things you might not have heard about me before, and things that just my thoughts on entrepreneurship, on working for yourself, on e-commerce in general. And I think there's a lot of good information here if you're someone that's into it. So I've left timestamps down below if you're watching on YouTube. But apart from that, hope you enjoy. This is something that's very new for me, and I think you'll get a lot of good value out of it, a lot of good info in this one.
Like, this is super relaxed, man. Like, if you need to do anything, just go for it.
Yeah, no, we're all good. I mean, got my water here, and I just ate, so we're good to go whenever you're
Awesome.
ready.
Let's go for it. So, my name is Daniel, and this is Assessment 2, Interviewing an Entrepreneur. And today, joining me is Jack Perotta. Jack is the founder and owner of Ecom Educate, a course accelerator that helps people step by step to launch and scale their online business. Jack offers 2 courses as of right now, one drop shipping and the other Amazon FBA. Jack also has a YouTube channel with over 11,000 subscribers where he devotes himself to teaching others by providing valuable and free information on business mindsets, e-com excellence, and entrepreneurship. Jack, thank you so much for joining me for this today. It's awesome.
No, thank you, Daniel. Glad to be here.
So you've been making videos on YouTube since late 2017, and you've posted 462 videos at the time I'm recording this. And I have to ask you, do you still like your coffee without sugar?
Sometimes, yes. I mean, it's a bit of a long story. I won't get too into it, but I used to get a lot of I guess stomach issues from the milk, but yeah, that's why I needed to do it with no milk. But I still love a coffee either way, like milk or without milk. But I've actually been on the carnivore diet. I know a lot of people would know about it now, but been on that for the past 2 to 3 months, and that's allowed me to have milk. So I've been having milk without sugar in my coffee. But either way,
how long have you been on that diet for?
For 2 to 3 months now. So it's been going well. I'm still allowed. I'm not strict carnivore, but it's been good. I think I've lost about, maybe while on the diet, probably about 10 to 15 kilos. Lost a little bit more before that, but it's good. I mean, if people have a lot of issues with food and stuff and digestion and whatnot, or if they're intolerant to some foods, I'd recommend it for sure. But yeah, coffee, give me a coffee either way, with sugar, with milk, whatever, I'll drink it. It's good.
Awesome. And I know you're a huge fan of sort of having a work-life balance, and you post a lot of videos about that, and a lot of useful philosophical videos even touching on that. But I know you're a big fan of esports too. Are you still playing Rocket League competitively?
I am actually. I'm back in this season at the moment. I've been practicing quite a bit. With the work-life balance thing, that was my hardest. That was the hardest part of it, because back in 2020, I was heavily into it, but I was leaning more towards too much of the esports. And, I was kind of it was almost like I was putting the business on the back burner, because I'm like, I really want to become pro at Rocket League. I really want to do this. But I'm at the point now where I've got good balance. So it's I don't touch the game until I've got all my work done. So I am still playing. Hopefully you'll see me in the scene in the next few months. But it's challenging, but it's fun, because you gotta also have not just work-life balance, but in terms of work, but you're gonna make sure that you hang out with people that are close to you, friends, family, partner, whatnot. So you gotta have good time management. That's been the struggle, but it's fun. I'll say the least.
It's good to hear that you're still playing that, because I love watching esports myself. I mean, I don't watch Rocket League, but
yeah,
I heard it's actually still growing, which is surprising considering how long the game's been.
Yeah,
It's still,
it's getting big. It's not as big as say like CS:GO or Valorant or even like League or something. But yeah, it's getting there. Not a tier one esport yet, but it's fun. It's got a good fan base.
now I do want to jump in. I've got a lot to talk about, and like I'm really excited to talk to you about all this stuff. And before I sort of get into the sort of more theoretical stuff, I suppose, what sort of inspired you to first want to become an entrepreneur? And I suppose, how did you discover Amazon FBA in the process?
I'd say back in the sort of like around 2015, 2016, when I was kind of looking into it. I'd say maybe earlier on when I was like young teen. I would probably say the first sort of inspiration, I guess, would say my dad, because he's an engineer. He owns his own business. So he has three other brothers as well. So he like all of them are business owners. So it's almost like sort of in my blood, I guess, in a sense, where there are a lot of business owners there. But for me personally, I always liked the idea of working on my own time, because I was always someone I used to be very shy. So I was someone that I'd get the work done. I'd be a good worker, but it's very hard to like speak up. I had a lot of like confidence issues and stuff, which a lot of teenagers do as well. When growing up, all the puberty and everything, there's always like issues with confidence and whatnot, especially these days I see as well. But that sort of played a factor into it. And that kind of drove me towards like when I would have sort of like regular jobs as well, I sort of found that even though I liked the job itself, I didn't really like the idea of working under someone. I didn't like the idea of being under someone's time. So I don't know if that's like can't think of the word, like a selfish thing, but that's just sort of my thought process. And at the time, I guess the way I found FBA was I was working at a retail job. I was at JB Hi-Fi. I first started there in 2013. I think I was like 18 at the time. Yeah, I was like 18. 2013, I started there. I worked there for about 4 years. In the midst of that, I also worked at a gym. I worked at Snap Fitness. I was admin there because I was studying to be a personal trainer as well, because the whole reason why I wanted to be a personal trainer wasn't even to work at a gym. The whole reason I wanted to be a PT was to do online personal training, because I always liked the idea of like online personal training, having online clients. I didn't have to go into work and work, say, a regular 9 to 5, or I had to be like at work at a certain time, whatever was on my roster, I had to be there. So I like the idea of that. And eventually, I'd say around 2016 was, I wasn't really into. I finished my PT courses. I did my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness, so that was all done. So I'm still a qualified PT, I guess you could say, but I never ended up using that. But it sort of was like the gateway for me to start learning about online business. And then I just did my regular like YouTube research. And back then, maybe like 2015, 2016, drop shipping wasn't so big. I'd say I would have probably got into drop shipping if it was around YouTube then, but a lot of people back then were talking about FBA. So it was more so like, YouTube studies and what was coming up when you type in like the general how to make money online kind of thing, and reading a lot, like listen to a lot of ebooks back then as well. It was like the big things back then were like email marketing and selling ebooks and Amazon selling. So that's how I sort of got into that. But I like the idea of Amazon selling because it was more like, let's say, autonomous, you could say. Get your product into Amazon and start selling. So that's what drew me to that. And that's where I started sort of like learning about it.
Yeah, awesome. Because you said there for a bit that the reason that you were being driven to sort of find and work for yourself, I should say, was because you really wanted to, be autonomous. And I think, did you say escape the 9 to 5 too? There a bit.
Yeah.
You wanted to sort of.
Yeah. So it wasn't like, see, I'm not someone. I know there's a lot of people out there, a lot of business owners, and I guess you say entrepreneurs, that they sort of like they absolutely hate the 9 to 5. I don't hate the 9 to 5 at all, and I think that it's great because there's a lot of upsides to having a normal 9 to 5. It really depends on what you're into. If you're someone who is driven to be like an entrepreneur, own your own business, they tend to have like a similar thought process. And for me, it was more so having that freedom of, okay, I can choose my work hours, and it was more so like I didn't have to be, working, and I guess I learned back then that it was like trading my time for money in a sense, where it was like, even if I worked at a gym as a PT, say you charge $50 or $75 an hour, you could only make, there was like a cap for a certain amount of money you could make per day and per week, based on how many hours you could work. And once I started getting into these ebooks, I think I read a book back then called The 4 Hour Work Week. I think it was by Tim Harris. I think it was. It's usually pretty popular with people getting into entrepreneurship. He was just talking about all these different systems and how you can utilize it to basically free yourself from earning money based off how many hours you work. And that's what kind of really inspired me, because I'm sitting here thinking, like, I'm reading these books and thinking, well, people are making money, basically, let's say make money while you sleep. It's not really, you can't really make money without doing work, but essentially an online business, you don't have to be present there. And that's what really sort of, I guess, inspired me to get into it, because I like the idea of making money without having to be present. Like, it was like back at JB, I was earning, it was very low back then at JB. I think when I started at 18, I was making like part-time, like $12.44 an hour, which was just nothing. It was very like below standard back then. And even as a manager at JB, I was making, I think, maximum of like 18, 19 bucks, which I think now, like, that was nothing, even as a manager working full time. So I thought, I don't have to say work an hour and make $19. I can make like 50 bucks in half an hour or something, or I could make, more money while I'm not actually present working if I had an online business. So that's kind of what drove me towards that.
Yeah, it's really funny how you talk about how, the whole idea of not having to work and making money while you sleep. And a lot of new gurus sort of throw that out around the place a lot. Like, you don't have to work for when you have an online business, you don't have to work at all. You can just make money while you sleep. But realistically, there is quite a bit of work that you have to put in for it. Maybe less than something else, but you still have that freedom to set your own hours. But there is that work that you still have to put into it.
Yeah, of course. There's the one thing I didn't like, and I think that was another reason that pushed me to do more on YouTube, because all of these videos that I was seeing come up from other YouTubers before I really got into YouTube, they threw those terms out there a lot, like make money while you sleep. They're talking about, it was almost like, what do they call it? Like passive income as well. I really don't like those terms because they've been skewed in a certain way. And in my opinion, whether you're doing like any online business that you do, even if it's like real estate or something, right, where that's sort of like more like your true passive income for real estate, but there's always work. There's no such thing as like a business that you can just set it once and forget it and then it just earns you money, forever. There's always work that you got to put into it. And I think, that's where a lot of people are going to be careful, because they throw out these terms like passive income and make money while you sleep. And it sounds really cool, but at the end of the day, they make it sound easy, a lot easier than what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned having that YouTube channel there, but I suppose what I want to ask you is, what has starting a YouTube channel sort of been like for you? And what are some of the experiences and sort of skills that you've gained from starting one?
I think experiences, I've experienced a lot about, like, because I've always been someone who likes the idea of finding out like how to read people. And because I used to be really shy, like I said, I like the idea of, as I gain my confidence working in retail, I like the idea of being able to read people. Working in retail help with that, because you got to sell to people and whatnot. I liked having conversations with people. It taught me that. But then starting the YouTube channel, I guess it gained a lot of confidence for me in front of a camera as well, just talking about my thoughts. If you see my first videos that I did back, like my first videos back in the day in 2017, I was still a bit nervous in front of the camera, and it was a bit harder for me to look at the camera and think about and say what was on my mind. A lot of, like, I guess I've experienced a lot of sort of like, talking to an audience, because you don't really realize that you're actually talking to people who listen to you and follow you. So it's a lot of that as well. At the end of the day, for me, I'm pretty much just talking about what stuff that interests me and stuff that I think will actually help people. and I try and do it in a way that's not so overhyped, because I know a lot of people, like, as of especially my more recent videos, I don't even do intros anymore. I used to talk and say, hey, my name's Jack, this is blah, blah, blah. Now I don't even bother, because a lot of people, to be honest, don't really care. Even if they follow me or if it's the first time seeing me, they don't really care about an intro. They just want to get straight to the info. So that's what I've tried to do as well. But there's been, when I first started the channel, there was, I'd say, maybe a little bit of pushback from my parents, especially, or more so my dad. But my parents are very, very supportive people. They've always supported me with what I wanted to do. But I think as I was starting the YouTube channel, it was also while I was doing my first Amazon FBA, the online business stuff. And he was a bit, I guess, wary, being a parent. And he said, look, at that start, he was against me doing the YouTube. And I said, look, I'll figure it out, because his whole thing was, don't talk about stuff before you do it. Make sure that you actually show the work that you do before you just talk about it. Don't be someone who just talks and doesn't do anything, which is my whole thing. Was I wanted to document my journey basically on YouTube. And that's when I started that. And I said, look, I know, but I want to keep doing YouTube. And the reason I started the YouTube was because I was doing Amazon FBA and really learning it, getting into it myself. And I was talking to people about it at my work. And I was saying, look, I'm able to make these sales and stuff. I wasn't showing off. I was just saying to people, this is the first time. It's exciting for me. And they were asking how to do it, asking about info and whatnot. These are all my workmates when I was in the retail job. And they said, oh, is there something you can put up online? So I thought, well, why don't I just start posting videos? So that was sort of how I got into that. That was back in 2017. But yeah, I've had a lot of good experiences with it. Like doing a YouTube channel, it's almost like a second job, but it's fun. It doesn't feel like work. It's really cool.
Wow, that's amazing. I never knew that. That's how you got started, from friends at work who kept asking you how to do Amazon FBA.
Yeah.
Convince you to start up. That's amazing. Wow. And so how did you you mentioned you didn't have that confidence when you first started that YouTube. How did you sort of overcome that confidence? Was it just from uploading more, and you just kept getting used to having that camera there and talking to people, and it just became a normal thing?
Yeah, it's the same way that the confidence in the retail job helped me. I just had to, I'm someone who has to learn by throwing themselves in the deep end, because I'm a lot better now, obviously being older, and I've experienced a lot more. But when I was younger, I was someone who would overthink before going into a situation, and I'd always be nervous and self-conscious and whatnot. But the best way I learned, with anything, whether it was doing the PT courses or YouTube or getting a job in retail, I just had to throw myself out in the deep end. And, I think to myself, I might look stupid or dumb or whatnot, but it's the only way I'm going to learn. So I have to learn the hard way a lot of the time, just throw myself in there. So yeah, with YouTube, it was just posting a lot of videos and finding out what works. I had a lot of videos where I wasn't looking in at the camera in the early days, and people would comment and say look at the camera. And there was just, music would be put too loud and you could hardly hear my voice. And that's just how you figure it out. You're not going to be perfect. My videos now aren't perfect either, but that's fine. I just go by feedback, what people like to see, and I just adjust. I'm at that point now where I post something that I find interesting and that I think will help. And if people like it, they like it. If not, then I switch it up and change something else.
Yeah, you post really so many useful videos on YouTube, and it's hard to stress. I would even say that your channel is underrated in the fact of how much free information you provide. It is unreal. You provide so many useful tips. Not only just for e-commerce stuff like drop shipping and Amazon FBA, but also just important key mindsets that sort of entrepreneurs need to survive. But what do you think are the sort of fundamental characteristics and attributes that an entrepreneur needs today?
It is, I guess it's always been the same kind of characteristics. I guess being an entrepreneur these days is a lot more accessible. There's so many different avenues that you can go into. There's people making money off TikTok, just doing TikTok videos now. You can be an entrepreneur that way. You don't have to have a physical business. Back in the day, it was even before I was born, back even 70s and 80s, there was no such thing as online business. So it was all brick and mortar businesses. You had to start a physical shop, right? But these days, there's so many avenues that you can get into. But I think the main thing, just going from my experiences, is that you need to have a lot of resilience in terms of figuring it out along the way. Because, like I said, there's ups and downs with having a normal 9 to 5 compared to being an entrepreneur. With a 9 to 5, you got, and actually had this conversation yesterday with my partner. We were just talking about it. And I said, you got to like sort of choose your sacrifice. With a 9 to 5, you sacrifice your, I guess you could say, freedom, where you're working under someone else, and you sacrifice your time, right? Because you work under someone else's time a lot of the time with a normal job. But with being an entrepreneur, you got to sacrifice. Sometimes you work a lot more, but you got to sacrifice, I guess, a bit more security, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you don't have a set wage a lot of time, unless you're making a lot of money. You pay yourself out a wage, but still you got to earn. It's like you're the back line of the business. So you need to make sure that you are working. You need to be motivated to keep doing the work, because you're the one who brings in the money. It's like you don't have a boss that's there to just count your hours and pay you. You got to make sure that you are on your own time. You have to make sure that you have your time organized. You get the work that you need to do, because you can have as many days off as you want. As if you're in your own business, you're the boss. You can do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, it's going to catch up to you. If you have too many days off, then you're going to your business will start to struggle, and then you won't have as much money to pay the bills, and it does catch up with you. So I think different attributes would definitely be like resilience, and you have to be willing to fail. This is a very cliche one, but you have to be willing to fail a lot. I think there's a lot of failures that I've had along the way, but I don't really think of it that way. Think of it as like, it's just stuff you go through. You learn along the way, whether it's like with YouTube, whether it's my educational company, there's things that you do that don't work out. There's things that don't work out how you expect it. So if you have that resilience to sort of work through it, then at the end of the day, if you're working towards, either one big goal or a set of small goals that you've set for yourself, if you're working towards that every single day, it's almost like impossible to fail. The only way that you're going to not get there is if you just stop working or you just quit altogether. Like if you're working towards something every day, you can't possibly fail. It's like you're only working in that direction. So I think, that's one other thing. You can have resilience is a big one, and just the having the mindset to think of failure as like a good thing as well. Now, a lot of people talk about it, but that's a main one too.
Yeah, I think that's really big what you said about failure and resilience as well. And I sort of want to go into that too, but more on sort of a resilience first, because I know at the beginning of this year on TikTok, you posted about sort of the struggles that you had faced with catching COVID.
Yes.
And I know you talked about sort of being bedridden for a large portion of bad illness, and that obviously would have been a big setback for your work too. But how did you sort of overcome that, and how have you overcome other challenges throughout your professional life?
Well, with COVID, I mean, a lot of people have had it, so it's not like it wasn't really. I guess for me, it was a bigger thing because I was bedridden for the week or so. I had a lot of other stuff going on in my life as well, just personal stuff. So that was sort of piled on top, I'd say. But I think the biggest struggle for me was, and a lot of people have had this too. I can't think of the technical term for it, but I had a loss of sense of smell and taste. I lost both of them, and the taste went for about a week and a half, and the smell, I'd say it's still only like 95% back, and it's been like a few months afterwards, right? But when it was like basically all gone, I couldn't taste food, I couldn't smell anything. Every sense was like gone, and that with being bedridden, it wasn't so much not being able to work, but it was more so being thrown out of my routine, and just, I mean, it's the same as anyone who gets COVID, but it was more just like a mental battle. It wasn't so much physical. The first few days, I was like, I couldn't really get out of bed. My muscles were sore and whatnot, but it was all just about the mental side of overcoming that. So because it was new to me, it was a bit hard, because I'm someone who loves like coffee in the mornings and obviously love the taste of food. And if you can't taste either, it's like, well, you don't really feel like having it. Yeah, so it was kind of hard in that sense, more of a mental battle. But overcoming other stuff in my life, I mean, I think as a teenager, I was more of like in a victim mindset. And that's why I was very negative, because I was sort of in the mindset of, why is this happening to me? And even if it was just like a small inconvenience, I'd just think to myself, why would this happen to me? And over the years, and as I gained my confidence doing different things and new experiences, I think starting my own business was a big one for really gaining confidence in myself and being sure of what I wanted. That helped me to realize that it's all about the way you think about things. And now, if something were to happen to me, there's two ways to think about it. In my opinion, there's stuff that you can control, and there's stuff that you can't control. And that's the biggest key, in my opinion, is because if there's something bad that happens to you, say like, one of the worst things that could probably happen, like if you lose a family member, someone close to you, right? It's sad, but that's something you can't control. So what you can control is how you deal with it afterwards. Obviously, there's going to be grieving, there's going to be sad times, right? But it's how you deal with it afterwards. Are you there for your family? Are you going to become resilient and really take a situation to realize the good times and whatnot, instead of thinking, down? Obviously, it's going to be a sad time, but you control afterwards. But you can't control that particular situation, right? You can't really necessarily control your health a lot of the times. But a lot of times, what people get down about and they beat themselves up over, and they sort of think life's bad, are situations that they can control. Situations that a lot of the time, I can't give specific instances, but it's like a lot of these situations in our lives, you have control. It's like maybe you're tired like one day and you're in a bad mood, and you think that it's not just a bad day, but your whole life's bad. But at the end of the day, it's because you went to bed late. So it's like, that's why you're tired. It's stuff you can control. So I think about it in that sense, and that's how I've overcome a lot, because most of the time you can overcome things mentally. It's really about how you think about it. And when you really think about it, your life's not that bad. Like a lot of the time people have it pretty good. Even it's not like I think it's not like a race or like a competition to see who has it worse than the other. It's more like everyone deals with different things. Everyone has different things that they struggle with, but it's all about how you think about it. My whole life changed completely when I started controlling how I thought. Like back then, I just thought that life controlled me, in a sense of like, when something happens, that's just how it is. But now in the mindset, I think probably for me, it changed around like 2018, 2019, when I really started having that mindset, probably from like a lot of books that I read and just experiences. Once I started to control, how I reacted to things, and really being more, I'd say, stoic in a sense about it. It's amazing, like the difference that it makes, because things don't affect you the same. Like it makes you, it's almost like a power up in a sense. It's like, yeah, it makes you very see life in a very different way, and things don't affect you the same. It's good.
Yeah, that is a very stoic mindset, and that is like, just like your sort of videos that you post often, you do talk about these sorts of things occasionally, and you do talk about, almost like, it is philosophical, these different topics that go into now about how you overcome these challenges, and sort of give you that new perspective, really, because that's what it was, that perspective that you sort of came upon. But how has, I suppose, that perspective on life and also on work changed since becoming an entrepreneur, and has it had an effect on it? And sort of starting your own business and working for yourself, has that changed how you view things?
Oh, 100%. Like I even think about it to this day. Sometimes, because this is probably I think it's my fifth year now of having the business, and especially like the first real year I started it was 2019. That was sort of when I went full into the educational side of things, and it was like one of the most exciting years ever, because I was very excited about it. I was thinking, well, I'm making money from this now, and I'm making enough to not need a job, right? And I guess it was exciting in the sense back then because it was something new, but over the years that it's still exciting. but it's in a different way. I'm sort of more mature about it now, and I still know what I want, but it's almost like I view the world in a way where it's like you have a lot more choices than what you think, right? And even if I wasn't doing online education, I would have some other kind of business. Like, I might be doing something like sort of like thrift shopping, where I flip stuff on eBay, right? I would have any kind of business that would allow me to work on my own time. So that's my whole thing. I've viewed it in the sense of like, okay, if this business fails, I will, even if I'm be running it for 10 years, or I decide to do something else, or it doesn't work out anymore, I'll move on to something that will allow me to do that. So mine's more of like, I'm not trying to build the biggest business ever. I've got something there. I've got a business there that allows me to live my life on my own terms, and that's just because in the sense for me, it's what makes you happy. If you have a 9 to 5 corporate job and you really enjoy your holidays, you really enjoy, having your accrued leave, and you have the 2 to 4 weeks off per year, and you're really happy, then that's like, there's nothing wrong with that. You should go ahead and do that. There's nothing wrong with having a normal 9 to 5. But if you're someone who doesn't like that, and you'd rather say like, today I went out, got a haircut, talking to you now, having a nice interview, and then I'll do my work later on in the afternoon because I can do that, right? If that makes you happy, then you go and do that. So it's all about choosing what you enjoy to do. So I think that's where my perspective changed, because I always used to think that it was set in stone, where it was like there were only certain jobs, there were only certain things you could do. You either go to university or you start a particular business, and you have to stick to that forever, right? It's like you have to stick to one career forever. But we're in a time now where there's so many choices. But I think the one thing that I want to mention about that is that especially a lot of young people, they don't give it enough time. Like they want to start a business, whether it's drop shipping or whatever it is. Maybe they want to be a real estate agent, but they only try it for a few months, or they only try it for like a maximum of a year, and then that's it. Maybe they put in a few hours here and there, and then if it doesn't work out, they think that it doesn't work or it's not right for them. You really have to give it a go. Like it takes a long time to actually figure out if it's for you, and it takes a long time to actually become successful. Same like this YouTube thing. Like the first year, there's people that start YouTube channels, and in a few months they're at like 100K subs, right? My YouTube, the first year, I think took like a year or a year and a half just to get to 1,000 subs, which still is a lot of people. But for YouTube channel, especially these days, a lot of people might look at that and think, well, I'm not getting anywhere, and then they stop. But you can't look at it like that. It's like if you do what's making you happy. I really enjoy doing the content. It doesn't really feel like work. That's when it starts to grow. And it's the same with my business too. Like if I'm doing work because I enjoy it, then more money tends to come in, and more success tends to happen when I'm just enjoying it and not focusing on, okay, how do I make money? How do I make money? Like, how do I make more? If you focus on just doing the work and being good at your job and being good at the work, then money just tends to follow, and success tends to follow as well.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people who are considering starting a business and don't end up doing it as well, I think risk is a big factor as well. It's like people are concerned about risk. And I know for you, the whole time you've just been enjoying it. So it may not have felt like it may have not have been a risk for you. I mean, especially with YouTube too, it's just like you're just doing this because you enjoy it and you enjoy putting out this content.
Yeah.
But how have you sort of approached taking risks in the past, and considering the position that you're in now, like maybe your net worth or how you've accumulated wealth in the past, how do you find yourself taking on risk? Do you find you're less likely to take on risk just because you don't need to, or are you're taking the same risk as you were before?
So, I mean, there's always going to be risk. Like everyone's got there's always risk involved with what you're doing. Whether you start a new job or you start a new business, there's always going to be risk, right? And for me, I think I'm very favorable for having some kind of backup plan. Like I know some people say, well, you can't do business unless you go all in, but I think that's kind of dumb. If you just go all in, like I'm quitting my job and I'm going to become a pro drop shipper, right? It's like, are cool. I like the enthusiasm and the passion, but at the end of the day, it's not the smartest thing to do. Like when I was doing my Amazon FBA, when I was doing my training for PT, I even did a gaming development. I've got I can't think of the word, not a bachelor's. It's like some kind of certificate in game development. I did that for like a year or two, and I was just studying as well, doing that. And that was just after I did my PT stuff as well. But while I was doing that, while I was starting Amazon FBA and just really getting into it all, I was still working. So I was living with my parents at the time, and I was lucky enough that I didn't have to pay board or anything, right? I know everyone's situation's different, but there's still risk. It's like even while I began making good money from the online businesses that I was doing, my parents are still saying to me, well, still get a job, right? Because you still need to make sure that you've got security there. And I still agree with them. Back then I was like, oh, I'll get a job. And I was just kind of putting on the back burner because I really wanted to just work for myself. And eventually that did work out for me. Eventually I didn't end up having to get a job, right? Because I started earning enough. But even when I first moved out and I first moved into my own place, right? Even though I was making enough to support myself, I still had in the back of my mind, well, I'm ready to get like a weekend job if I need to. And you got to sort of put your ego aside, because some people think, well, if you start business for yourself, then you got to stay in it forever. It's like if you become an entrepreneur, then you can't go back to a 9 to 5. Otherwise, people will think you failed it, or people will think it didn't work out. Where I'm in the mindset of you just got to put your ego aside. Like if I had to start a weekend job tomorrow, if I had to start a weekend job next week, I'd go and do a weekend job. It's like still got to earn money. I'd rather have enough money to pay the bills than seem like I'm just okay and I don't, and I'm trying to make it work even if it's not working. So I think ego ties into a lot of it as well. When it comes to risk, yes, you do need to take a risk, but you need to be smart about it. Like a lot of people come to me and they say, hey, people who want to enroll in one of my courses, they say, if someone comes to me and they say, oh, I'm just trying to scrounge up enough money to get the course, I tell them, don't do that. Don't worry about it, because I don't want someone putting in their last bit of money into a course, even if that course turns out, teaches them how to make a lot more, right? I would still rather them have something backed. It's like, you got to be smart about it. You don't want to just go ahead and risk, especially if it's like financially or something's going to really directly affect you, in a bad way. You just got to be smart about it. So yeah, you got to take risk, but you got to have like some kind of plan behind it. You can't just blindly go into something and just hope for it to work out. You got to have some kind of plan.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And you sort of mentioned before about ego, and ego seems to be a big thing with people who make lots of money. Like it's just a fact. The more money that some people make, it might just be inherent that you have an ego already before you were rich, or for some people, but it seems to be a big thing. Like you've got a lot of entrepreneurs and you got TikTok gurus who have these courses, who sell these courses, and who show off videos in the Lamborghini and all these
well,
women.
In my opinion, with that, I'm a believer in like money just exposes more of who you are. So if you are someone who is nice and you're someone who is more grounded, then more money shouldn't really change that. Or if you have someone who's really nice, but then they make money and then they turn out to be like an idiot, then that's sort of who they are in a sense. Because I think money just exposes more of who you are. So, when you got someone who's really down to earth and really good, where if they like do fall upon a lot of success, but they're still the same person, then that's who they, I guess, kind of are. That's what I think. I've seen it with a lot of people. Like, if they end up making a lot of money, or even if someone like wins quite a bit of money, maybe they win the lotto, or they just fall out, some success, maybe they inherit money and then they change, then that's like, okay, well, that's who they actually are. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more on that. I do think that as well, that money really accentuates who you are. And, if you're a bad person, you become more of a bad person. If you're a good person, well, stay good.
I agree.
So on the 21st of November in 2017, you uploaded a video.
Yeah.
Do you know what that video was?
On the 21st of September?
of
November.
November in
Oh,
2017.
well, that sounds like the time of my very first video.
It is your first video.
Yeah, that was the beginning of my Amazon journey, because I remember that, because that was one of the videos where, don't know if it was that one or the one after, where someone commented, "Look at the camera," because like back then my room was a mess. You could tell the way I was talking in the camera. I was very nervous. Funny thing, actually, when not a lot of people know this, I actually uploaded on that channel before I uploaded any Amazon videos.
Wow.
So I used to do Rocket League videos back then.
Right.
And my old channel name used to be Snowy. That was my in-game name. Like my in-game name for Rocket League was Snowy. And I did a lot of videos. I had one video pop off back in the day, back in like 2016, I think it was 2015. And it got like 13,000 views or something, which back then was it was a lot for me. But I ended up doing maybe around 40 videos, like 30, 40 videos of Rocket League, because I used to do montages and stuff. And then I got rid of that. So my first sort of 50 subscribers to 100 subscribers was Rocket League based. But then I changed the profile picture and my name and whatnot, and came back to my channel in 2017. And that's that first video. It was Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing, because you did, in the video, you outlined 3 goals that you had, and do you remember the goals that you had in the video?
I think
3 goals.
I think mine, I remember one of them was I know one of them was breaking out of the 9 to 5. I was really big on that back then.
Yeah.
I don't know if one of them was like an actual figure, like an actual make a certain figure. But I remember there was one video as well that I posted a bit after that. I was actually writing on a whiteboard, and I wrote down my sub goal, my YouTube subscriber goal, moving out, and then there was a couple other ones there, but I don't remember all of them. I only remember like one of them.
Yeah, it was you're right. It was escape the 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
build a brand,
Yeah.
and work for myself. So look at you now.
Yeah.
You've achieved all 3, and you've come so far. And if you could go back in time and 6 years ago to 2017, and you could chat to Jack in 2017, what would you say to him?
Oh, I'd tell him to go even harder. I was working hard, but I would have put even more time into it. Because I think back then it was more of like, I used to think of it as like a dream, sort of like a goal that was almost like it was attainable, but it's going to take time. But if I knew what I know now back then, I would say, just like put even more time into it. But I wouldn't really change anything, because the experiences make you who you are, in my opinion. Like the experiences just are what shape you. So wouldn't change anything. I'd just work even harder, I think.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to those people who are starting out today as well?
I would just say, actually give it a good go. There's so many, and a lot of people out there that are trying, they don't realize how young they are. There's so many people that I know that are like anywhere from like 14 to say 18. Even people just reach out to me. They think that they have to have everything figured out. And like me, I'm turning 28 this year. And a lot of people think, well, especially if you're like, say even in your late teens, I think that that's really old, right? But at the end of the day, like you could be 50 and you still got so much time left. You got like another at least 30, 40 years ahead of you. And you think of I like to think of inspiration, like even, I don't know if you know this, but even like KFC, Colonel Sanders, he didn't start KFC until he was 60. Right. And it's like, And I think even people like J.K. Rowling, like who wrote Harry Potter, she didn't write those books until I think she was like in her 40s, 50s or something. So there's like so much time. And like in that time, she's like a billionaire now or something. Right. But you've just got so much time. But I think the main thing is that you need to work hard. There's always going to be a big factor. Anything that you see on YouTube or online that says that it's easy, it's not worth it. There's anyone who tells you that it's easy, right, and that you can just do it overnight, that's not real. Nothing happens overnight. So you got to work hard, but also have patience as well, because some people think that if you work hard at it for a month or two and nothing happens, then it's not worth it. But usually it's like once you get past that struggle, then you figure something out. It's like you'll learn something that you didn't know before, and then you're one step closer. You're one step deeper to getting to that point. So I think that's another thing that I've learned along the way, is that if you really do believe that something's going to work out and it's something that you really want to do, then you got to work hard at it. It's not going to happen overnight.
That's great advice. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you've worked hard yourself, and, here we are, we've gone through everything now. And I just want to thank you again for taking the time to come and do this interview. Like, it means a lot.
Oh,
And
of course.
for some people who were doing this interview, I know it was difficult for them to write questions for this sort of thing, but this came easy for me.
These are very good. This is very good questions. So I think you've done well.
Thanks,
done
mate.
really well. Yeah.
It came easy. It was very easy, and I was excited to do this. So thank you again for taking the time to do this. This was awesome.
No, happy to do it, Daniel. No, happy to be here.